Be sure to order your copy of the Go-Go Offense by Coach Brennan Marion on footballgameplan.com/GoGo Offense. Coach Marion goes through the ins and outs of his explosive offense, one that's tearing up the college football field and putting a lot of points on the scoreboard. Again, you can order your copy at footballgameplan.com/GoGo Offense.
Welcome to the Football Game Plan College Football Tailgate Show. I am David Hassagen. He is Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. And this week we will be breaking down all of the major college football news and notes for Week 1 and get you up to speed on some games that maybe you do know and some you might not. But let's start with the 4-minute offense, Emery. The 150th year of college football, significant, historic. You were part of that evolution. What's the biggest part of the evolution of the game, you think, in the last even 20 years, never mind the last 150?
Yeah, you say 20 years. I played 20 years ago when I started back in 1999. That was year 130. I remember as a kid remembering the 125th or 125th year that the big shield patches on the uniform. So it was cool to be a part of college football. I think where I've seen the biggest growth and development in this game has probably gone from a regional sport to more of a national sport. Now, it always has had that national feel to it, maybe around bowl season, but I felt like during the regular season it was more regional. But now you see more teams are playing on television. Everyone essentially is playing on television, some sort of streaming device. More high school recruits are now taking more informed choices or more informed visits and making more informed choices to their respective programs. So you're seeing the talent go evenly across the country. So I think that right there only bodes well for the next 150 years, but it's been a great run for college football. It's weird to see it at 150, thinking back to 1869, November the 6th, between Rutgers and Princeton.
We talk about, too, the College Football Hall of Fame and all the great players. The newest class, the 2019 class, has just been announced, a 15-player class. You are a voter. So many incredible names on this list. Who was the name that stood out to you when you were voting?
Well, normally I don't reveal who I voted for, but I will give you this guy, Rocket Ismail. I grew up a Rocket Ismail fan, a big fan of what he did at Notre Dame. You talk about a guy that was blazing fast. Literally, his name is Rocket. His brother was the missile, played at Syracuse. They have a son called the Bomb that also played at UTEP. So
the whole arsenal
is there. But Rocket Ismail was outstanding at Notre Dame. One of the fastest players I've ever seen in football pass. Lou Holtz even said he ran a 4.2 in equipment. You saw him as a kickoff returner. You saw him utilized in the backfield. We saw him utilized as a receiver, slot, and also split. He was one of the best playmakers in college football. You talk about Percy Harvin, you talking about Reggie Bush, you talking about all these players that have played the game and been dynamic. Rocket Ismail was one of those guys I thought was well before his time.
Let's talk about no longer the past, but now the present. 2019, the season's upon us. Clemson, the defending champions, a big target on their backs. How do you think they're going to handle that pressure? Pretty kind of a new situation for them being the national champions.
Yeah, but they've been here before. We've seen them play Alabama 2 years ago with Deshaun Watson and win that national championship. And we saw them be a team that was in the playoffs the following year. And last year, they go and win the national championship with a freshman quarterback. So if anyone knows how to reload rather than rebuild, it's Clemson. What I want to see from this group this year is how they're going to get those new guys up to speed on the defensive side of the football. You lose a Dexter Lawrence, you lose a Christian Wilkins, you lose players of that caliber. Can they find the next wave of guys? Because it feels as though every year Clemson is replacing units, whether it's offensive line, defensive line, receivers. This is a very good program, and I think they'll be just fine starting the season against Georgia Tech.
You talk about reloading units, and there's a lot of teams that are reloading at the quarterback position. A lot of new faces in new places. Jalen Hurts, Christian Alexander, just a couple to name a few of them. How do you think these guys are going to have some impact on their new teams?
Well, let's start with Justin Fields. He goes from Georgia, where they couldn't figure out how to use him. He was the #1 overall recruit, but he couldn't beat out Jake Fromm, who was one of the top quarterbacks in college football. So he transfers to Ohio State. We've seen the progress Ohio State has made from that position. J.T. Barrett was an all-time leader in the program. We just saw Dwayne Haskins step in his first season and break Big Ten records. And now you have a guy of the caliber of Justin Fields coming into this ball club with Ryan Day as the new head coach over there. I think he's going to do a good job and acclimate himself well. Jalen Hurts is who I'm excited to see because you talk about a guy that has a championship pedigree. Although he didn't win one himself, he was a Deshaun Watson miracle away from winning one as a true freshman. So you like his ability to play in the playoffs, to be able to win games. And now he's following two Heisman Trophy winners in Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. He's going to a system I think is tailor-made for him to have success. I like Jalen Hurts. And I'll throw another name out there. You talk about a guy going from one place to another and can have success. You have Tommy Stevens going from Penn State, where Joe Moorhead was the OC back a few years ago, to now where he's the head coach at Mississippi State and going into the SEC. Tommy Stevens, 6'5", 230, was probably going to be the heir apparent, or was supposed to be the heir apparent to Trace McSorley, but that didn't work out for him. He transfers down to Mississippi State. He's eligible to play as a grad transfer. I'm excited to see what he does this year for the Bulldogs.
Certainly going to be a lot of storylines they're going to keep an eye on all season long. But let's get into the matchups now for week 1. And by matchups, we don't just mean team versus team. We mean position against position, squad versus squad, coach versus coach. So, Emery, what do you have for us for week 1 for your matchups to watch?
Well, the biggest matchup I'm looking for is that LSU defense going up against that triple option attack of Georgia Southern.
What makes this matchup such a dangerous one for LSU, and the reason why we chose this to spotlight on this show, is the fact that Georgia Southern has one of the best option quarterbacks in the country in Shia Werts. And what makes him so dangerous is the fact that he also has the ability to work the passing game really well. And when you add that element to the triple option, it makes it a quadruple option. So if you're LSU, you not only have to be gap sound, gap discipline, and assignment sound, but on the back end, you have to be cognizant of big plays that could happen potentially deep down the field. So if you're keeping your eyes on the backfield, watching what Werts does with the running game and watching those backs in the option attack, you leave yourself susceptible to the big play deep downfield. And Werts has shown the accuracy, the touch, the placement, the wherewithal to hit those big plays and make you pay. We'll take a quick break and be back with more College Football Tailgate here on the Game Plus Network. Football Game Plan is brought to you in part by Ninth and Lux. Visit the website ninethandlux.com and check out the clothing gallery. Do You Music with featured artist IW and his latest album, Season 2. You can check that out on iTunes as well as doyoumusic.com. Nesby Phipps, art, life, entertainment. NesbyPhipps.com. Grind It Out Fitness. Visit the website grinditoutfitness.com and download the app.
Welcome back to the Football Game Plan College Tailgate Show. It's now time to take a look at some of the big games from week 1 that we'll be paying into in the FBS. And let's start with Syracuse taking on Liberty. First ever matchup between these two squads. Liberty's won 15 of their last 16 home openers. But Syracuse getting some national attention, ranked in the preseason poll. What do you like about this ballgame?
It's interesting that Syracuse, they better have a home and home where they're going to Liberty, and then next year Liberty goes up to Syracuse in the Carrier Dome. But when you look at Syracuse, I think their defense is going to be excellent once again this year. Alton Robinson is one of the top pass rushers in the country. He's probably going to be a first-round pick. He's on the Senior Bowl watch list. They go up against Buckshot Calvert in that passing game of Liberty. And I think that's going to be the biggest matchup, Liberty's offense versus Syracuse defense. We know Dino Babers and his offense, fast-paced. They can keep that defense off balance. I think this will be a struggle early on. It's the first game of the season. Everything is primed for upsets, but I like Syracuse to win this one going away.
Big battle in the Carolinas to watch out this weekend as well. South Carolina at North Carolina. The Tar Heels have struggled against the Gamecocks. They're 0-3. But they've got a new quarterback coming in. There's a lot of reason for optimism at Chapel Hill.
But there's also the return of the Mac Brown.
Yeah.
That 1997 North Carolina Tar Heels team was one of the best teams that I've seen. Dre Bly, Julius Peppers, Ebenezer Ekubon. They had a ton of talent on that football team defensively. He's trying to regain that or recapture that magic. But right now against South Carolina, Jake Bentley is another player that's coming back. Their quarterback, TJ Brunson, the outstanding linebacker, two cornerstone players on offense and defense for South Carolina. This is a big year for Jake Bentley. He's a senior. He's a guy that has a lot of pro prospects, scouts looking at him and wanting him to take that next step. He threw 14 interceptions last year to 27 touchdowns. If he can get that number to go down to maybe 6 or 7 with that touchdown number to continue to creep up, he could find himself as a mid-round draft pick. I do like South Carolina in this game. North Carolina, I still have to wait and see what that team looks like. I know what to expect from Muschamp's defense, and I think they do a great job of slowing down the Tar Heel offense.
A little bit of favoritism in our next game here as your Louisiana Raging Cajuns are in the Dome in New Orleans taking on Mississippi State. Bulldogs are perfect against Louisiana, 4-0. Is this the time that streak ends?
It could be a time where the streak ends. What I like about Louisiana and that Raging Cajun offense is their ground game. They go 3 deep in the backfield. Raymond Calais is a guy that's on the Senior Bowl watch list. Trey Regis, the junior tailback, the bruiser. They used to call him Baby Bettis down there in Louisiana. Cajun Bettis, as they like to call him. They can run the heck out of the football, but I want to know what that defense of Louisiana will look like going up against that spread offense, that up-tempo spread offense of Joe Moorhead and what he does with those Mississippi State Bulldogs. That's going to be the biggest challenge. I know Mississippi State lost some key players within their front seven. Montez Sweat is in the NFL. Jeremy Simmons is in the NFL. That takes a little bit of the firepower away defensively, but I still think they have enough on offense to squeak by the Cajuns in the Superdome, which should be a rocking place down in New Orleans.
Another neutral site game coming up next in Arlington, where Oregon will take on Auburn. All eyes are going to be on Herbert for Oregon coming back for his next season, but Auburn's got a little quarterback controversy as well in terms of their starter.
Well, they're starting a true freshman in Bo Nix, whose dad is a part of the staff and was also a quarterbacking legend down there at Auburn. But this is going to be a big game because you have a true freshman starting a huge matchup against a team in the Ducks, where the Ducks come in wanting to make sure they have a strong enough case to get to the playoffs, because we hadn't seen a Pac-12 team in quite some time. So we'll see if this Oregon team means business. I think they will take care of business. It's too much to ask for a freshman quarterback, whether true or redshirt. I like Oregon.
Let's move on to the next game here. An early SEC conference game. One of the big contenders for Clemson's crown is Georgia. They take on Vanderbilt. The Commodores have lost 7 straight SEC openers. They are at home, but they are up for this game. Georgia looking to make a statement. Could they be primed for an upset?
They could be. This is not your father's Vanderbilt squad. They have 3 legit pro prospects on that roster: running back, tight end, defense. So we'll see what happens with Vanderbilt. And I think when you have a team like Georgia playing Vandy in week 1, they had all spring, all summer to prepare for one squad and one squad only. Now, I do like Georgia to win this ball game, but it's going to be a lot closer than the experts think. Keep an eye on DeAndre Swift, the tailback. I think is the best running back in the country.
A game of intrigue, to be sure. The next one features the Duke Blue Devils. Yes, Duke football, but they take on the University of Alabama. Nick Saban and that powerhouse Crimson Tide offense will be looking to recover that national title game. Does Duke give them any trouble at all in this one?
It's going to be interesting because Quentin Harris is the starting quarterback this year for the vacated Daniel Jones, who's now with the New York Giants. Harris stepped in a lot last year and played some. He actually played really well on the back end of that game, that bowl game against Temple. But he was also a wide receiver last year as well. So he has a little bit of that dual threat capability. We'll see how that fares against a stout defense in Alabama. But I think the Tide roll in this one.
Another game to be looking forward to is the debut of Jalen Hurts. He trades one shade of crimson for another, going to Oklahoma. They take on Houston in the first game. Houston's known for high-powered offense, but the Sooners are expecting big things out of Jalen Hurts.
Well, you look at the Cougars coming in with a new head coach in Dana Holgorsen, who now gets his hands on that in-state, inner-city Houston talent to go right there to the Houston Cougars. But you're right. Jalen Hurts going to Lincoln Riley's offense, tailor-made. I think this offense will pick up right where it left off last season. I'm more intrigued to see how he looks on a consistent basis in this offense, because we saw him in spurts throwing the football. We'll see if that can be stretched over the course of a full season and hopefully into the playoffs. I think they knock off the Cougars.
Another one of the challengers, though, for Oklahoma's crowd in the Big 12 will be Texas. A lot of eyes on them. They take on Louisiana Tech. First ever matchup between these two. La Tech, do they have a chance to pull a major shock here and knock off the Longhorns?
It's a possibility, because remember, they gave LSU all they could handle last year. I like Jamar Smith, the quarterback. I also like Amik Robertson, the outstanding cornerback for Louisiana Tech. He's a matchup guy, has great ball skills, but I think this game will be won on the trenches. So look for Texas's offensive line to lean on that defensive front of Louisiana Tech and eke out a very close game. This one will be decided in the second half, but I like Texas.
And one last game to talk about here in the FBS level. University of Virginia taking on Pittsburgh. Virginia, the last few years, they've been on the come up. Bryce Perkins, a big part of that success. How does the dual threat quarterback, do you think, affect this game against Pittsburgh?
Well, I was at this game last year in Charlottesville on a Thursday night. It was a Friday night. It was a rainy night there in Charlottesville. Pitt ran down the throat of Virginia. You talk about a team that could not stop the run. Darren Hall, who's now with the Bengals, had over 200 yards rushing. Defense couldn't get off the field. Bryce Perkins turned the ball over. Look for Virginia now with their defense and Bryce Perkins' second year as a full-fledged starter to knock off the Pitt Panthers. I think they get revenge out there at Heinz Field.
We're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, we're going to look at some of the matchups you may not have paid that much attention to, but you should be across all divisions nationwide here on the Football Game Plan College Show.
Football Game Plan is brought to you in part by Financial Coaching LLC, Investment, Retirement, Security, Stewardship Credit. Financial growth is in your hands. StewardshipCredit.com. Adrienne Marie Photo, photographer, writer, management. AdrienneMariePhotography.com. Lock Multimedia.
Welcome back to the show. It's now time to wrap things up as we go through a few more contests to keep your eye on in week one, starting with UC Davis facing off against Cal. UC Davis replacing a lot of now pro talent on their offense. There's going to be a struggle for them this season, some say. Others say they can just reload with Jake Mayer at quarterback. As for Cal, they've underperformed in the Pac-12 the last few years. How do they approach this ballgame?
Normally you're worrying about Cal's offense, more worrying about their defense, but I worry about their offense this year going into the Pac-12. However, their defense, I believe, will be strong enough to where they can become a quiet contender in the Pac-12 North. So keep an eye on Cal. I think they'll frustrate Jake Meyer in that UC Davis offense.
An interesting one down near the Shenandoah Valley. James Madison takes on the University of West Virginia. WVU has won their last 15 home openers, but if there's any team that's known for pulling an upset early in the season, it's the JMU Dukes. Can they do the same thing here, ranked in the top 5?
They also feature a new head coach this year at James Madison. This is the battle of new coaches. You have Neil Brown on one side, Kirk Cignetti on the other. Exciting to see the coaching strategy going in between the two coaches. But I like West Virginia in this ball game. The backfield is phenomenal. They have depth in the backfield. I think they'll lean on that ground game. We know James Madison will be game for an upset. This is a game where I feel as though both teams mirror one another, but I do like the offense, the backfield of West Virginia. I think they take care of the Dukes.
An in-state rivalry coming to a head here in week one. Howard taking on Maryland. Obviously, no more go-go offense for Howard, but Maryland is also a very difficult team to beat, even with a high-powered offense. They almost pulled off some big shocks last year. How big of a challenge will this be for the Bison?
It's a big challenge, but you also have two new head coaches once again. Ryan Prince on one side for Howard and Mike Loxley, the head coach for the Maryland Terrapins, who comes over from the University of Alabama. But what I like about this game is that it features a ton of explosive talent. For Howard, Kalen Newton, Jaquez Ezzard, who's on the Senior Bowl watch list, Kyle Anthony, another outstanding senior wide receiver, and Deidre Pearson in the backfield, another one of these guys that can really hit the home run. But there's no go-go offense this year for Howard, as Brendan Marion, the OC, is now the OC down there at William & Mary. So we'll see what this offense looks like. Can Calais take the next progression in the passing game? So we'll find that out against a Maryland team that has a ton of speed, explosiveness. Expect a lot of big plays in this game, but one in which the Maryland Terrapins will win.
Let's talk about one more FBS game, and there's a little bit of a revenge factor in this one. Virginia Tech taking on Boston College. BC took this game last year. Virginia Tech down from where you normally see them in the ACC. What can the Hokies do to reverse the course and get the revenge in this game?
Stop the run. And when you're talking about Boston College, can you stop the run? And one guy that's up for this challenge is America's defensive coordinator, and Bud Foster, who may be in the swan song season. Love the way he calls defense. He's been a fixture with that program since the days of their former head coach in Frank Beamer. So when you look at this game, can the Hokies stop the run? A.J. Dillon on the other side, 6'1", 250-pound tailback. We know that you're going to see inside zone, you're going to see power, you're going to see gap, you're going to see lead, you're going to see all kind of stuff coming from Boston College. I struggle to see where Virginia Tech stops the run. I like Boston College in a close game.
A matchup between D2 and FCS in our next one. Morehouse taking on Alabama A&M, the Black College Football Hall of Fame Classic. Two schools that don't get a lot of attention nationally, but two very good squads, especially Alabama A&M.
Well, Alabama A&M has one of the best quarterbacks in the FCS in Nikhil Glass, and he's getting great coaching down there by Connell Maynard, who was an outstanding record-breaking quarterback at Hampton, went on to a fantastic, what I think should be a Hall of Fame career in the Arena Football League. Nikhil Glass has gotten better every year. And when you look at Alabama A&M and the talent they've accumulated over the last 2 seasons, they're ready to make a run in the SWAC. And I think it starts this week against the Maroon Tigers of Morehouse. I look for them to take care of business in the Black College Hall of Fame, the inaugural Black College Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio.
Defense will definitely be the order of the day in our next matchup. Georgetown, the Hoyas, taking on the Davidson Wildcats. 2 very high-powered defenses, but the Davidson running game could be might be the difference in this one. Who do you like in this one? 2 teams that we're both very high on.
Well, the Duggar did it in Davidson. You talk about Wesley Duggar, outstanding tailback. We know Davidson's offense can average 40 points a game easily. Strength versus strength. Georgetown's defense is one of the best in the Patriot League, arguably one of the best in the FCS. I am expecting big things from Georgetown this year. I'm more interested to see how they will generate offense. They have a outstanding tight end, H-back in Isaac Schley, who's going to see some options over the middle of the field. But can they stretch that field vertically and really open up this offense? Defensively, I think they'll do enough to slow down Davidson. I like the Hoyas.
Next matchup, the MEAC SWAC Challenge is on display. Bethune-Cookman taking on Jackson State. Bethune-Cookman, a lot of people's possible favorites to win the MEAC this year. Jackson State had a better year last year, but they're going to have a big challenge with BC. Emmanuel
Olenga, the defensive end for Jackson State, was at Campbell, transferred last year to a JUCO. He's a pro prospect, legitimate NFL prospect at 6'4", 245, 255. He's going to be the pass rusher, but I like the way that program down there is being run by Terry Sims at Bethune-Cookman. This is a patient team, a well-balanced team, a team that can play great defense despite some of the losses. I think they'll take care of business against Jackson State.
An interesting matchup in this next contest, SWAC versus Southland. Southern taking on McNeese. Southern won the SWAC West last year, just came up short of getting a Celebration Bowl bid. McNeese State also coming off a year of disappointment. A down year last year, missed the postseason after many favored them to win the conference again. Both teams looking for redemption. What do you like in this game?
Was that a shot at me about them winning the conference? But yes, I did predict McNeese State to win the conference, but there's going to be a lot of yellow and blue in this game, number one. And number two, this is a key matchup because this has not only conference implications, but playoff implications already in week 1. And you talk about McNeese, they're breaking in a new coach as well. Kobe Burton, the cornerback, is going to be one of the best cornerbacks in the country. Can they slow down the ground game of Southern? Southern does a great job of being balanced offensively. Love their offensive line. I think McNeese will win this one close. This one will probably even go into overtime. I think it's going to be that close.
Another game of intrigue, and one last game we want to talk about here, and that is Grambling taking on UL Monroe. Grambling lost the crown in the SWAC West last year in what was a very tightly packed division. It's going to be the same this year between them, Southern, and Prairie View. UL Monroe, some are calling them a dark horse in the Sun Belt Conference. What do you like about this ball game, and do we see a potential upset here?
Now we have a North Louisiana matchup where the previous game we talked about, Southern and McNeese, was South Louisiana. This one is right up along the northern part of the state with Grambling, La Tech, and UL Monroe in the same area. I like UL Monroe to win this ball game. Tough task for Grambling. Like you talked about, I do believe the Warhawks will be a sleeper team in the Sun Belt. They've quietly put together a very sound program up there in Monroe.
That will do it for the Football Game Plan College Tailgate Show. Don't forget to go to footballgameplan.com and youtube.com/footballgameplan for all of your football knowledge. And check out our college football coverage with our FBS and FCS whip-arounds and our FCS Opening Drive podcast, which is available on demand on SoundCloud and iTunes. For Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, I am David Hassagen. Thanks for watching.